sweet loves. Welcome to the Heroine's Path podcast, a sacred space for awakening women wishing to transcend limitations, blaze their own trail, and return to divine wholeness. I'm Cece, healing priestess, transformation mentor, and spiritual coach, and I'll be your guide as we go on this quest of reclamation, activation, and ascension. Together we'll dive into heart-centered wisdom, mystical stories, illuminating tools, and masculine-feminine dynamics across the areas of life, love, and business. See this podcast as part of a soulful new pilgrimage, a journey to meet your highest self. Remember, you're a self-leading queen, and no one knows you better than you, so receive what your soul needs and leave the rest. Heroine, it's time to forget who you've been taught to be and become all that you were born to be. Let's take one another by the hand. Together we rise. Hi, loves. Welcome back to the Heroine's Path podcast. Super excited to be sitting down and recording this episode with you, feeling really grounded and whole and present after a beautiful weekend with one of my best friends down in Cornwall. We went to a lovely place called St. Ives, which I've never been to before, but it was absolutely stunning. And I just love going down there. I mean, I've always been more of a Devon girl myself, which is the county next door for those that don't know the UK that well. But she has always said to me that Cornwall is her absolute favorite. So we went over to Cornwall and it was really, really beautiful. Just really makes me value having that time to spend with sisters one-on-one is so important. Being able to have those soul nourishing relationships with other women, and most importantly with women who are also on this journey of conscious awakening and of recultivating the sacred feminine within themselves, within their lives, within their bodies. And it got me thinking about something I have spoken about before, but I wanted to go into it in a bit more detail with you guys today, which is the shared experience of divine feminine beings. Now, what I mean by that is there will be women in this life who perhaps don't feel really super called when I say the words divine feminine. And I'm assuming it's not you if you're here listening to this podcast, but there will be women who hear that and think, yeah, that sounds nice. That sounds like a lovely thing. If I had the time, I might try and feel a bit more divine. You know, it's not going to speak to their soul. And even though those women do have divine feminine energy flowing through them, because literally every single thing, every single person, everything that exists, everything. I was going to say something else and I was like, no, it's literally just everything carries the frequency of sacred feminine energy or divine feminine energy, and also of divine masculine energy. Now, these energetic frequencies go beyond gender. They are not gendered, although you will find that the majority or many women feel that they are divinely feminine at their core, at their soul level. And you will find that many men identify with their masculine energy. Now, we can also take them completely away from gender if masculine and feminine feels a bit misleading. And we can separate them into self and soul. Your soul being more of your feminine energy. This is where you're more receptive. This is more in the realm of your unconscious mind. So down in the darkness, down in the depths, can't necessarily be seen, but a lot of wisdom carried there, a lot of wounding carried there. And this is really where you go to feel divinely and creatively inspired. And then you have your masculine energy. So then if in the duality of self and soul, the masculine acts as the self or the personality. And this is more what we might think of as our ego. And if you've been on this little self-development kick for a while, then you'll definitely have come across the term ego. And your ego doesn't have to be eradicated or destroyed. It doesn't have to be gotten rid of. Your ego is super important. It's the part of you that helps you to take action in the world. It's the part of you that helps you to relate to other people and to hold space for others, as well as going into the ethereal or the more liminal realms yourself, which is more of that feminine energy. So it helps you to be outward focused. It helps you to take action. It helps you to set boundaries and to know your worth. So once you can integrate your ego and have it come to serve your soul, and that's a beautiful quote actually from someone called Gary Zukav, who wrote the book The Seat of the Soul. He says that when the personality comes to serve at the seat of the soul, then that is when true authentic power is cultivated. And it's my interpretation, or the way I see it, is that that is another representation of the divine masculine and the divine feminine energy that exists within us. So I want to dive in to this divine feminine path, divine feminine woundings and initiations. Like I was saying, there are some women who will hear the divine feminine and think, that sounds really nice, but it doesn't speak to them deeply at a soul level, not in this lifetime anyway. And everybody's on their own path and has to come to things when the time is right. But there will be other awakening women amongst you, my beautiful women who are listening. And potentially some men too. And if this is the case, then listen and bear the women that you know in mind. And this is going to be some beautiful codes to help you to support them even deeper and to understand their journey with a more higher perspective. So I want to speak to awakening women who do feel called by the divine feminine. And the reason I want to speak to this is because the more I travel along this path of spiritual development and self awakening, the more I work with clients, all of my clients are women. So the more I work with clients in a one-on-one capacity, during any of my courses, even speaking to women inside my membership, the Heroine Circle, or online, I start to notice the same themes cropping up again and again and again. This comes up with my sisters and my friends as well. And what I think is happening is us women who do feel called to walk the path of the divine feminine, who feel that when they hear about the divine feminine, when they hear about goddess consciousness, when they hear about masculine and feminine and balancing those frequencies to create harmony and balance on the planet, when they hear that, it sparks something in them. It makes them feel like they are perhaps remembering something that they already know but have forgotten long ago, or gives deeper meaning to certain situations that they had just written off as being bad luck or unfortunate or traumatic. And then when they hear about goddess consciousness and the divine feminine and all of these fiery karmic initiations that women walk through as they go on this path of awakening, it helps them to understand not only their own life path and their own experiences, but also helps them to plug in to something that's shifting collectively, to something that's happening on a collective, wider level. And that really is saving our planet, right? Like saving our planet has become not just some kind of like superhero, like I'm going to save the planet out of a cartoon or out of a magazine, but like this has become something that we all need to take really serious responsibility for. And what we're doing isn't working as humans. What we're doing to our planet isn't working. And I think that by looking at what's happening in our world through the lens of masculine and feminine energy both helps us to understand how we've arrived in this point, and also helps us to understand how we can heal both individually and collectively, like I say. So today I thought it would be super interesting and illuminating and fun to walk you through some of the main divine feminine woundings and initiations, karmic contracts that you may have walked through. And I would love to hear from you how many of these you relate to, how many of these feel true for you in terms of your own life so far. And I would also love to hear from you. Feel free to DM me at the Heroines Path podcast on Instagram, or you can feel free to email me or DM me on at Coach by Cece, any of the above. But I love to hear from you. I love to get your reflections and your feedback. So I also want to know what was reborn as you went through that initiation. So as you move through some of the things I'm about to share, what got to be reborn because you allowed yourself to move through that? You allowed yourself to traverse the depths and the darkness of those experiences, and what got to be reborn because of that. So here we go. Let's dive the hell in. The first wounding or initiation that I have identified, and all of these, every single one I have experienced in my own life. And like I say, the deeper I absorb myself in this work, the more golden threads I find. Shared experiences, similar truths, unspoken knowings between women. And I truly believe that it's because we know each other already. This is what I really want to impart with you. We already know each other, and all of the competition and all of the antagonistic media that pits women against women, that is so distracting from the true wisdom that lies in sisterhood. So we have all agreed, I believe, to come here now and to pick up the torch, to pick up the sacred torch of the goddess, relight it, and pick up her work where she left off. And we're here to change the course of history. We're here to heal the planet. We're here to carry this sacred torch down through future generations. And every single one of you listening is here to do amazing, powerful, profound, great work in the world. I truly believe that for you so, so deeply. I believe that for me. I believe that for you. And I stand for a reality where you get to move beyond the old paradigms that are unsupportive and that don't support you to live at your fullest expression and as the most authentic, beautiful version of who you were born to be. I stand for a world where you get to take your pain, you get to take your woundings, and you get to make art out of them by going through it, by feeling it, by healing it, and by alchemizing those lessons, right? Alchemizing means to take something that's of a base nature, of a heavy nature, and turn it into pure gold. And that's what you're doing with your life. You are alchemizing your I guess, quote unquote, negative experiences, and you are turning them into wisdom and gold. And then you get to share those with the world. You get to share those inside your partnerships and your relationships. And that's how you become a living and breathing embodiment of goddess consciousness. It's not about staying asleep. It's not about being tamed. It's not about being the good girl. It's not about being perfect. It was never about being perfect. It's about embracing the life, death, life, rebirth cycle that exists both in our bodies, that exists in nature all around us, and that exists in life. You know, things end, things come to an end so that other things can be reborn. Really traumatic breakups and relationships. Yeah. horrible endings of jobs, horrible accidents, where something happens completely out of the blue and unexpected, and it shifts your life forever. And all of these things arrive so that we can sink even deeper into our healing and into our innate knowing. And so that ultimately we can alchemize those lessons and serve them up to the planet in some way. And that is the great work that you are here to do. Now, whether that is helping and supporting other women on their awakening journey and guiding women home to their true selves, to their pleasure, to their bliss, to their wisdom, to their abundance, like I do, you might have a very similar calling. Or it might be something completely different. It might be sharing your art with the world, knowing that offering up your gift is the biggest piece of service that you could do. Knowing that sharing that brings light to other people's lives and helps them to experience and express their emotions in a way that maybe they haven't been able to access before. Or maybe it's sharing your incredible organizational skills through setting up your own party planning business or wedding planning business and helping other people have the most magical, beautiful, easeful, and stress-free day or business project. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that you have to have this spiritual purpose, or that you have to be an online entrepreneur or a coach or a healer or anything like that. And if that is your calling, then amazing. But it doesn't mean that we're neglecting the old, I guess, quote unquote, old 3D ways of working, the old human ways of working, right? Even office jobs and things. Those can all be changed and evolved, I believe, from within. And that change and that evolution, has to begin within us. Now, for us to evolve, for us to embody goddess consciousness in whatever manifestation we would like to, through our work, through our relationships, through the way that we care for ourselves and show up for ourselves, through the way that we are with our family, through the way that we are with our friends and our sisters. For us to evolve and to embody goddess consciousness there, we have to integrate our woundings and our initiations. I just channeled all of that through. I think about 10 minutes ago, I said I was about to start the list, and then it just was like, no, I think I want you to say this now. So I just hope you know as well, like these podcast episodes are super channeled. Like I am not really preparing too much, showing up, sharing what's on my heart, and sharing all of the heart-centered wisdom and hopefully some illuminating tools that you will be able to then use in your life to help anchor the sacred feminine frequency into your relationship with yourself and your relationship with the world. And we are on such a beautiful journey together. But like I say, for us to evolve, we have to have awareness and we have to integrate. And so let's go through the list of the divine feminine woundings and initiations so that you can see how many you relate to. The first is major issues with body image or disordered eating. Major issues with body image or disordered eating. Women have such a distorted sense of their body, such a distorted relationship to their body. And this is due to thousands of years of patriarchal regime and influence, literally putting women as second-class citizens. And that still is the case around the world. In Western society, for white women in particular, there are still issues, but we do have to also recognize and acknowledge our privilege compared to some other countries in the world where women literally aren't even allowed to drive a car or leave the house without their husband's permission. So we have that to contend with. We have the media to contend with, and we have the over-sexualization of women's bodies, the sort of Madonna whore complex, which is essentially men over-sexualizing women's bodies, but then turning that sexualization back around on us and saying that that's what makes us unworthy of being loved. But yet they fetishize it. So we are dealing with so many different layers of distortion around the feminine body. And what that looks like in terms of our lives is it manifests as major issues with body image, all the way through to disordered eating, bulimia, anorexia, and all of the other illnesses that have emerged in the last 10 years, or, well, at least been named and labeled in the last 10 years. So that is the first initiation, something that I certainly have struggled with in my time, for sure. I grew up with a sister who has a very, very different body shape to me. So that always really affected me. And I was always a lot taller than my friends. I'm 5'11", 5'10", 5'11". So I always really struggled and felt so much bigger. But there were also comments, even within my own family, about the way that I ate or my food. I was definitely quite a greedy child. That's something I know for sure. And so I was always very conscious of my body and my weight, and I wanted to be thin. The schools that I went to as well really encouraged that behavior. And it just became this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. I think at first I sort of felt attracted to the idea of being somebody with those sorts of problems because I could see that it got the girls' attention. But then once that took its hold, it took quite a lot of years to really be able to let go of diet culture and yo-yo dieting and the ups and downs and being obsessed with weighing myself. And there were many years from really during my teenage years to my early 20s where I had quite disordered eating and would make myself sick and things like that after meals. So yeah, that was something that was quite difficult to deal with. And I want to bring this back to the divine feminine. If you are feeling that you relate to this, if you're perhaps feeling slightly triggered by this, just know that you are in such a safe space and that this is very common for divine feminine beings, for women who are called to walk the path of the divine feminine in this lifetime. We, when we're in our wounded feminine energy, we have a tendency to overconsume and to over obsess and analyze. And our body is the physical manifestation of the feminine, right? The feminine lives in our body. It's our mind that's masculine. So of course, if we have a distorted relationship with our own inner feminine, that's going to manifest as a distorted relationship with our own outer feminine. And of course, that is our body. So that is such a common initiation for women who are here to re-embody the goddess, the ancient wisdom from goddess consciousness in the modern mystery school that we live in. The second initiation, and it's kind of tied, is extremely low self-worth. So if you have moved through your life, oh, it's just started raining, but it's beautifully sunny. Oh, wow. Oh, I love that. There'll be a rainbow soon. If you have moved through your life with extremely low self-worth, then know that you are on the path of the divine feminine and that this is such a common initiation of this path. You know, really, it stems from this severance from our own inner feminine, from our own creative gifts. I don't know if you'll relate to this, but there were many things that I love to do creatively, but the path for my life was so predetermined to go down a much more structured educational route, university, and then go get a career and everything, that those creative outlets just were never even considered as an option for me in terms of making my way in the world and my career, my work. So my self-worth was extremely low. And it's always been extremely low in terms of my relationships as well. So if you have struggled with your self-worth, if you have struggled to love yourself, if you have struggled to make friends with your body, if you've struggled to remember whether you're good at anything, or if you have anything to offer, or you've settled for traumatic or abusive relationships, or settled just below your worth for the need to be loved, know that that is such a wounded feminine trait. And that you're here to alchemize that lack of self-love and those low standards into sovereignty. And so you have been offered up those experiences by life to help you with that. Yeah, to help you with that. I just mentioned toxic, abusive relationships. That's another one. If you've been through any toxic, codependent relationships, then those are literally being served to you on a gold and silver platter as a way for you to anchor into deep sovereignty and self-love. And those relationships arrive to jolt you into awakening. They serve such a divine purpose. And I'll do more episodes on those types of relationships because that's been a huge part of my journey. And I have so much to share, so much wisdom to share around how you can truly forgive and let go once and for all, and actually how you can meet that ex-partner soul to soul, not in real life, unless you feel called to do so, but soul to soul in the ethereal realms, in your mind, in your heart space. And you can genuinely thank them. And to get to that point took a hell of a lot of work. So I will definitely do some episodes and share that with you if you think that that's something you would find helpful. Definitely let me know. We are also looking at the mother wound and the father wound as being very potent divine feminine initiations. The mother wound really are, again, I'll go into detail in this in additional episodes, but the mother wound is passed down beliefs, passed down behaviors from your own mother or your own primary feminine caregiver, if you had one, or the lack of it would also create this kind of wounding. Pass down beliefs, pass down behaviors that seek to reinforce the severance of you from your divine and sacred feminine essence. So if your mum, if your primary caregiver showed you that she was spread super thin and she was always really busy and she always deferred to your father, or that she would always defer to men, that she didn't take time to care for herself, that she didn't prioritize her pleasure, those are being passed down to you. Scarcity is another one. Money mindset is another one that is passed down generationally, and that we inherit those beliefs and those behaviors from the subtle things that we pick up really between the ages of 0 and about 5 to 7. We've already picked up so many of these beliefs. Again, with father wounding, right? So again, father or primary masculine caregiver or lack of, again, would probably create the same wounding, is that there's an over focus on either looks. So if your father was praising you and almost sexualized you in a way, praised your looks, always gave you so many compliments, always wanted to give you attention when you were dressed up to the nines, but didn't really care for you when you were in your emotional depths, when you were just showing up in your tenderness and in your vulnerability. And then vice versa, there might have been an overemphasis on achievements. So if your father or primary masculine caregiver only ever really showed you attention when you did really well at school, or when you were promoted at work, or, you know, loved to hear that you were working all the hours God sends, and celebrated you for that, you know, and really treated you in a very masculine way, then that is going to have left some father wounding. And the mother and father wounds can really show up very painfully in our romantic relationships. So there's so much healing work to be done there, allowing you to welcome in more pleasure and more intimacy. More vulnerable intimacy is the most important thing with that father wounding. And with that mother wounding, we're looking at welcoming in sovereignty and boundaries and self-discipline, self-care. And I find that actually really interesting, that with the mother wound, what you need is masculine energy. And with the father wound, what you need is feminine energy. And it's what each of your parents didn't have. Mothers with no masculine energy have no boundaries, no self-worth. They spread themselves too thin. They're super busy all the time. They prioritize doing over being and pressure over pleasure. And fathers without any feminine energy focus either on a very distorted focus on looks and sexuality, or on achievements and goals and money. So both of those father wounds, both of those parental wounds represent basically the wounded feminine and the wounded masculine, the energies that don't have enough of the other to balance them out. And we can inherit those. So we're already walking into this lifetime on the back foot. Some other initiations you might have experienced in your life that will tell you that you are on the path of the divine feminine, that you are awakening as a spiritual warrior and as a vessel and a conduit for magic and medicine for the world and for your sisters and for the divine masculines too. Very important that we don't forget that we're here to help the divine masculine evolve in the men that we know as well. You may have experienced bullying from other women, deep, deep sister wounds, jealousy, comparison from other women. You may have experienced addiction, so overconsumption of alcohol, of drugs, of sex, leading to sexual trauma or sexual numbness. So if you have experienced sexual trauma, then of course that is going to be something that is likely to be a one-off experience, or an experience that you can really pinpoint, and it may have happened multiple times. But then you may have not had that trauma with a big T, but you might have experienced sexual numbness, which is where your sex becomes very performative. Your pleasure is not a priority. You're not even connected or feeling worthy of experiencing and holding space for your own pleasure. Sex may be something you do just to appease the man, or to feel that you are receiving validation and love in that moment. You're unable to surrender to the deep intimacy that is required to have conscious and ecstatic lovemaking. Over-identification with the masculine, that looks like burnout. This is very, very a popular topic right now. This is super classic reason why people come to me, why people come into my spaces. The whole reason why I ended up becoming a coach, the thing that awakened me to my purpose, was a deep burnout and the knowing and the remembrance that I was here for something greater, and that there had to be another way, and that actually I was only identified with half of myself, and that the fact that I had cut off another half of myself, that started to really create problems for me in my life. That started to it started to make me feel like I was shattering down the middle almost. And I knew that there had to be a way that I could bring forward or bring forth the other parts of myself, the parts that I was forgetting, or that I wasn't even forgetting, but that I was repressing. And that there had to be a way that I could achieve everything I wanted to achieve in this lifetime without sacrificing my core essence. And so that over-identification with the masculine, with burnout, is really raw and real for me, for sure. As a projector as well, a human design projector, I know that bitter, burnt out feeling very, very well. Fear and helplessness about our planet is another one, loves. Okay, so this might be something actually that's weighing super heavy on your heart right now, which is, how the fuck are we actually going to get to a point where our planet is healed and that we are in a balanced and harmonious state, you know, with everything that's happened with COVID, with lockdowns, with climate change, with everything that's happening in the Middle East, you know, with everything that's happening in America, with gun crime, with knife crime in the UK. I mean, the list is just endless. And it might be that you feel, if I don't know if you can hear that, but it's literally torrentially raining outside my window. So that's what that banging is, if you can hear it. So actually feels kind of cool to be like speaking to you guys and I'm in the midst of this storm. Yeah, so if you feel a fear and helplessness about our planet and about the state of our planet and feeling like there's nothing you can do to help, that is really the wounded elements of that, more of like a priestess archetype, somebody who is here to hold space for the world and to heal the world, or a wise woman archetype as well, something that we can dive into. And if you feel a deep sensitivity to others' emotions, then you are, of course, an empath, and you are deeply, deeply needed for healing and for reharmonizing this planet. The alternative to that is you may have gone through periods of your life, and I certainly relate to this, where you feel very cut off from your emotions, where you feel like if you express your emotions, it's going to make you feel or appear weak in some way. And you're nervous and scared to I just sprayed my little aura spray, by the way. I don't know if you could hear that. I'm always conscious. I'm like, I wonder if they can literally hear everything. But I was like, oh, do you know what? I'm just going to spray my aura spray because I'm feeling like this conversation is needing some assistance. And it's this gorgeous serenity spray that I got from a shop in Brighton, actually. But the water comes from the Chalice Well in Glastonbury, which I actually went to for my 30th birthday, and that was absolutely incredible. So yeah, that was my aura spray. Just keeping the aura, just keeping it in a place of love and beauty and harmony as we talk about the fear and helplessness of our planet. I think I just felt cool because I was like, oh God, yes, I feel that so deeply. And yeah, I was just speaking about being cut off from your emotions, right? So you might feel a deep sensitivity to your own emotions, like you're drowning in them. I definitely felt like that as a child. So you might relate to that. And then as I realized that that was not safe and that I didn't feel safe in my emotions, and also I didn't feel safe or like I could hold other people's reactions to my emotions. Like if I was very, very emotional, I couldn't handle like other people being upset by that. So I basically just wouldn't share because I didn't want to witness like my parents or my sister or friends being upset by my upset. So I cut myself off from my emotions for years. And I think that links to the next one, which is a deep fear of being disliked or shamed publicly. And again, I really moved into this kind of character of myself, this performative version of myself when I was in I feel like I was in a wounded masculine state after my abusive relationship ended when I was in my mid-20s. I moved into like a super masculine, basically wounded masculine state where I had no feminine energy available to me at all. I could not receive, I could not be receptive to help from others, to support from others. I was in a hyper independent state. I felt like if I shared my emotions, I would be seen as weak or revealing a little chink in my armor. But I also would dish out quite a lot of advice to other people. And I think that that's something that in hindsight really shows me how much of the divine feminine path I was on, but I was in such a wounded state. You know, I felt the call to be of service, but it was being channeled or being manifested in a fairly wounded, judgmental way. It was coming from a space of fear of needing to be better than other people, needing to know more than other people, needing to be the most wise, needing to have the best advice, rather than from this loving space of wanting to deeply, deeply serve. And I'm actually not afraid of being disliked anymore or shamed publicly. Although, of course, that's an ongoing practice and an ongoing frequency that I have to anchor into. But I was deeply afraid of being disliked. So I micromanaged my personality to the nth degree. And that, again, led to serious burnout because I had to go and literally take breaks just from being me. Like I had to go home for like 2-3 weeks at Christmas, Easter, and just lay on the sofa and just like have a complete downtime, because being me was like a full-time job. And then moving through, my loves, to the final initiations now, and they are over reliance on external validation. And I think that just ties into what I was just saying. If you've moved through the world needing, seeking, yearning, desperate for people to validate you, and unable to walk away from people and places and things that no longer serve you, desperately needing validation on social media or from boyfriends or from dating apps, then this is a really deep and beautiful invitation to put your hand on your heart space and just take a deep breath and just say, what's here for me? What is here for me? Why am I still falling into the same pattern over and over again? And finally, ego deaths that look like life crumbling or falling apart. We'll finish on this one because this is the most destructive of the initiations. And this is the one, like I sort of mentioned at the beginning, where life just comes and fucking bitch slaps you. Like you just, I'm just thinking back to all of the times that this has happened to me, and I'm just like, oh lordy lord. When you go through a horrific breakup, or when you're supposed to fly to another country to meet someone and they say that they're not turning up, or when you get into a motorbike accident and almost lose your foot, which happened to one of my best friends, or when your parent decides to move abroad when you are still an infant. You know, these are the deep and potent initiations into divine feminine energy, into the divine feminine, because you are experiencing the universe choosing you in that moment. And this is what I want to finish with, right? It's like you are experiencing the universe choosing you and saying, you know what, my love, this is the lifetime where I'm going to call on you to step the fuck up. And you can't go through this life with just normal, regular relationships or a normal, regular job, because that's not going to initiate you into the teachings that I need you to seed on this planet. And so you will experience major ego deaths, things crumble, things fall apart. Maybe you get fired from your job, or someone's in a car crash, or you lose someone that's so dear to you, or you get engaged and then the person leaves you 1 week before the wedding. You know, it's these huge initiations that just completely change the trajectory of your entire life, that are soul shattering and that plunge you right into the descent, right into the depths. But from those depths, that is where we rise. That is where we start to understand more about life. We meet ourselves, and there's no bullshit, there's no pretense, there's nothing standing in the way of you looking face to face into your own dark twin, the version of you that exists right at the depths of your psyche. Yeah, it's like almost like right at that pit of your stomach when you're going through trauma or grief or a heartbreak, and you're like, it's gnawing at the pit of your stomach and you're crying and howling and grieving, right? And that's such a destructive but also beautiful initiation into the darker side of the feminine energy, the Kali energy, the destroyer, and the rebirth energy. And like I say, what gets to be reborn? And what gets to be reborn from those initiations is that your soul remembers more and more every day. Every day new gifts come online for you, whether it's psychic elements, or whether it's that you want to be into healing, or whether you rediscover your creativity. But every day, as you face yourself head on and you don't look away from the ugly, destructive parts of yourself, every day you grow in power, until one day you look back at all the darkness, all the tears shed silently in the shower, moments of disgust staring in the mirror, all the hours that you were blacked out drunk, and you know why. You know that it had to happen that way, that it was always going to happen that way, and that they were initiations into future teaching. This is the path of embodied healing, my love. Yeah, this isn't healing from a book, from a self-development book, or from some sort of lecture. This is embodied healing so that you can move into the vibration that is so desperately needed by this planet. So I want to leave you with this message, my love, which is please do not fear. If you recognize and resonate with every single thing I've mentioned, then do not fear, because even if your life doesn't look as you hoped it would by now, or you've had some unexpected soul-shattering cataclysm that's shaken your entire world, I want you to know that you are on the path, that this is the path. It's not somewhere over there. You don't need to lose 10 pounds and then you'll be on the path. You don't need to buy another book from Amazon and then you'll be on the path. You don't even need to go and just speak to anybody else so that you can be on the path, okay? You need to meet yourself. Now, you might need spaces where that's possible, and friendships are often not a particularly fertile ground for that, unless you're super lucky and you have a friend who is deeply entrenched in doing the work. So it may be a case that you want to step into a space with a mentor, with a guide, with a healer, with a coach, with someone like myself who knows and is experienced in how to hold that space for you to go into the depths. So that's super important, but you don't need anybody else's wisdom. Where you are stood right now is the holy ground. Your life is serving you up the initiations. Your work is going to provide you with the information you need to be able to ascend. And your relationships are offering up the deepest healing. So you only need to look no further than your own life and your own experiences. And they are all sacraments of her blood, of her tears, of her sweat, pouring into you, the goddess. She wants you to wake up. She wants you to remember that you are finishing the work that she started thousands of years ago, and that there is so much more to be done. So do not waste another minute. If the goddess is calling your name, if these initiations look like they could be a "this is your life" story, then you are being called into the life and the path of the divine feminine. And what that means is we need to focus on redistributing wealth into the hands of feminine beings. Yeah, so no longer undercharging for our services or holding back our creative gifts for fear of not being able to make any money. And we need to support other women and other business owners who are leading from their heart rather than from their ego. It looks like leading and I got my words mixed up. Leading and guiding, I was going to say, the divine masculine in all of our relationships. Now that could be a same-sex relationship or a heterosexual relationship. It doesn't matter. Your partner, if you are a feminine being, then your partner is very likely to be a masculine energy being. And it's our job to initiate them into this teaching. The feminine goes first, remember. You'll hear me say that thousands of times as this podcast evolves. And finally, it looks like healing our great mother's body. And by that, I mean the earth. I mean our planet. And the way that we do that is by healing our own body first. The more we take care of our own body, the more we eat good food, the more we drink water, the more we care for our environment, the more we exercise and spend time outside and walking instead of in our car and everything like that, then the more we heal our own body first. The more we heal our earth by healing our body first. So my loves, I hope this ancient wisdom has landed for you in terms of your very modern, very 2021 life and lifestyle. I think that you will resonate with so many of the initiations I've shared. And I truly hope that this has shown you and illuminated for you that all of those things were sent on purpose and that they have deep meaning, and actually that they were perfect. They arrived in perfect timing and they gave you the perfect wisdom to be able to move into the next chapter of your life. So do not hold back. step up, step forward, own your voice, own your power, and embody the divine feminine path that you are walking. All right, my loves, I'm going to complete the podcast here. Before I do, I would love to ask you to please subscribe. Make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss any other episodes. And also, if you enjoyed this episode, please share and tag me on your Instagram stories when you're listening. I love to see and hear from you when you're listening to the episodes. It's been amazing receiving your messages so far, telling me that you're enjoying the podcast, that you're so excited about what's to come. So send a picture on Instagram, tag me on your stories so that I can repost and so I can come and love up on you and celebrate you for doing this work and for being in my space. And also so that we can spread the word of this podcast, right? So let's end that sister wound. Let's really prioritize sisterhood and spread a beautiful healing ripple effect across the world by telling as many women as you know. Even if you just tell one woman that you know about this podcast, then it will make all the difference. So subscribe, tell your friends, post about it on your Instagram stories and tag me. And if you feel called, then I would absolutely adore it if you could leave me a review as well. All right, my loves, I'm sending you so much love, and I cannot wait to speak to you on the next episode.